Hey, thanks for supporting our program. I wanted to talk about public utilities and PGE in California in particular, but this is a story, no matter where you live, that really hits us all. PGE is right now turning off power. They've turned off power to about 800,000 people, 100,000 here, 200,000 there, 300,000 at a time. And they're doing this because their above-ground power lines are not surviving high winds. And there have been so many years of drought in California from climate change that when these power lines get blown over, essentially, the high-tension lines, the sparks cause forest fires. And the Camp Fire, for example, killed, I think it was 85 people and burned 14,000 homes last year, was caused by, according to PG&E, it was caused by their equipment. And so they're shutting off the power so there won't be more of this, but when they shut off the power to communities, not only does everybody's food go bad, but for people who are, who need ventilators or who are on, medical equipment. I mean, there's a lot of reasons why this is just like a really, really bad idea. And, you shut off people's power, they lose access to communications. What if there's an earthquake? I mean, it's just not a good thing. So it turns out it costs about $500,000 a mile, $448,800 a mile, to run overhead lines, these high tension, these million-volt lines or whatever they are. To do the same thing underground is a little more expensive because they have to dig the ditches and they have to put the pipes in, and they've got to rebuild roads and stuff when they cut through them. So it's $1.16 million per mile. So basically $500,000 per mile for overhead, $1 million a mile for underground. So keep that number in mind, $1 million a mile. It turns out that this came out in a hearing a couple of weeks ago before Judge. Well, I'll get to that, but at this hearing, bankruptcy judge Dennis Montali, the guy who's running PG&E's bankruptcy, he points out that they diverted over $100 million for safety money. Now, at $1 million a mile, that would have been 100 miles that they could have protected from forest fires. And this is just the super high tension lines, right, that are causing these problems. So, the very specific things. They diverted $100 million of safety money, specifically designated for safety, into bonuses for executives. And in fact, that judge, they wanted to give 12 top executives another $16 million. And the judge said, no, you can't do that. Sorry. It turns out that they didn't just give $100 million to their executives in bonuses, though. This is another judge. This is Judge William Alsup. This is following the 2010 gas pipeline explosion in San Bruno, for which PG&E is on probation right now for murder, basically. I mean, it killed a whole bunch of people, leveled a neighborhood, killed 8 people. And this judge said, and I quote, PG&E pumped out $4.5 billion in dividends and let the tree budget wither. So they distributed $4.5 billion. Keep in mind, $1 million a mile to bury these lines. $1 billion is 1,000 million. So that would have been 4,500 miles of high-tension lines they could have buried. But instead, they gave it to their stockholders as dividends, according to this judge. And now Li Fang is reporting in The Intercept that not only that, they're spending hundreds of millions, or at least millions of dollars, on lobbyists, consultants, and PR officials. It's time to, for California increasingly is saying, and I would say the entire state needs to say this, communities are starting to say, screw this idea of utilities providing electricity to us on a for-profit basis, where, their first interest is their stockholders and their senior executives. To hell with that. We want good old-fashioned bureaucrats, good government employees running our utilities. And in fact, in San Francisco, they tried to do this. Supervisor Hillary Ronen, this from the San Francisco sfweekly.com. Supervisor Hillary Ronen, the city supervisor, basically the San Francisco kind of, board of supervisors. It'd be like the town council or the city council. They introduced a resolution last Tuesday, which is already unanimously co-sponsored in favor of the Mayor London Breed's offer to buy PG&E out for $2.5 billion in San Francisco. which, you know, PG&E is in bankruptcy. They desperately need the money. But, and the PUC, the Public Utilities Commission, said this is a good idea. But and in fact, San Francisco has the money and they can do it because, you know, in June 2018, they passed Prop A, which allowed them to sell bonds to do this, exactly this kind of thing. But a PGE spokesperson told the San Francisco Chronicle, quote, "We don't believe having a publicly run utility is the best idea." So Supervisor Hillary Ronan says San Franciscans are sick of being held hostage by PG&E, strongly support a transition to public power. What is abundantly clear is that by having our electricity delivered by our own public utility, San Francisco has the potential to bring cost savings and benefits to our communities, to invest in green jobs and infrastructure, to modernize our aging electrical grid, and to be 100% carbon neutral by 2013. I remember 8, 9, 10 years ago living here in Portland. When Enron went down, the company that was left owning our power was a for-profit company, also called PG&E. It's not the same one as California's. And the mayor of Portland and the city of Portland offered to buy the Portland part of PG&E and offered to pay them more than they were actually asking in the marketplace. And they said, no, we won't sell you to the city. We want this to remain in private, for-profit hands. And that's how it worked out. They literally would not sell it to the city. The city couldn't force them to. This is like evil stuff that is happening all across this country with our electric utilities, with our water utilities, and even in some cases with our septic utilities, although far more rare. And it's definitely happening with the public utility of cable and broadband, which also, you know, in Chattanooga now they're providing it as a city, as a municipal thing, and it's like $30 a month and, you know, 100 MIPS up and down, and it's totally reliable. Every place else it's for profit and service just sucks. So anyway, an FYI, hope I provided you with some useful information and ammunition for the next water cooler wars. Thanks again for supporting our program.